30 minutes from Chicago, there is a city that has some of the dirtiest air in the nation. It's home to the largest steel mill in the nation and one of America's largest black populations. Residents who've been breathing in that toxic air feel like they've been overlooked and neglected by those who can help clean it up. CBS News Chicago investigator Tara Molina spent months digging into that problem and found work happening now that could force change.
I'm here in Gary, Indiana. Behind me, one of the plants that's been a lifeline for this community for decades. But now, some who call this place home are in the fight for their lives. As the wind blows through her hometown of Gary, Beryl Fitzpatrick takes it in with a deep breath. One she no longer takes for granted.
Nobody wants to hear you have cancer.
With Beryl, you can hear her cancer as she speaks.
I was having trouble swallowing.
That led her to a devastating diagnosis, stage 3 tongue cancer. Beryl didn't know if she'd ever speak again after surgery, but she fought to keep her voice.
I had to learn phonics. I had to learn words and
What was that like?
And, it was humbling.
That was in 2016. Beryl has been in a fight against cancer ever since. She knows it's that very air in her own backyard that could be playing a role in her cancer.
Good morning to you.
It's what Dr. Kirsten Stenson, who leads the head and neck cancer program at Rush Medical Center, told Beryl.
It's almost certain that her place of residence with the high pollution and other industrial output contributed to her cancer. How much it contributed, it's unclear.
Pollutants you can see and tiny particulates you can't come from different types of industry in the Gary region. But of all the industry, one releases the most, EPA records show, these steel production plants. And it's those toxins Beryl believes are linked to her cancer. 7 major coal-powered steel production plants operate in the U.S. 3 are in this region: Burns Harbor, Gary Works, and Indiana Harbor. We wanted to know the impact of having these clustered here on people like Beryl living in Gary, so we dug into state and federal environmental protection data. Our investigation found these 3 mills emitted more regulated industrial pollution than the combined toxic releases of the 4 similar mills in other states. That was in 2023, the latest data available. 25 million pounds of toxins.
We do not need to sacrifice health and communities to make steel.
Hillary Lewis is a director at Industrious Labs, a nonprofit environmental organization which released this report in October about the danger.
The people in Northwest Indiana are bearing the brunt of the coal-based steel industry today.
Their study found people living near a steel production facility have a 12 to 26% higher risk of getting cancer. That's the risk of living near 1. People in Gary live near 3. Steel shaped this region. The city of Gary built by the industry for the industry. But when families like Beryl's moved here in droves from the South during the Great Migration,
For a better life,
for jobs and opportunities, they didn't know what we do now about health risks, and not just cancer.
A lot of the teachers would talk about students that had asthma.
People living in Gary are in the top 10% of the nation at risk for developing asthma, according to the Industrious Labs report.
I myself grew up as a kid, had asthma.
That's Gary's mayor, Eddie Melton.
There's some irony to, steel built this town, and now what we're looking at is how steel made this town sick.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a stark reality that a lot of folks would have to deal with.
The mayor wants this dealt with, in part by toughening toxic emission standards. But how likely is that to happen? In March, the federal EPA announced it's considering lowering some standards polluters have to meet.
What we're seeing from a federal and state government concerns me. in terms of rolling back the regulations on industries such as the steel industry and other industries.
Gary already fails to meet federal air quality standards. The county has more toxic releases than 99% of all other counties across the country, and the state ranks second in the nation for the most industrial pollution released per square mile. So what is the Environmental Protection Agency doing for the people of Gary?
So they're responsible for protecting clean air, and right now they're not doing that.
We dug into EPA records dating back to 1977. Since then, the state and EPA took 152 formal actions against these steel production facilities, nearly half for violating the Clean Air Act. For those air pollution violations, regulators issued more than $23 million in penalties paid by the parent companies.
If you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, fees and fines probably are just a drop in the bucket for you.
Both the state and U.S. EPA declined interviews, but sent statements saying they take action when facilities are out of compliance, and that's reduced air emissions.
How close are we right now to Gary Works?
About 43 blocks.
The mill Beryl lives closest to is the largest in the nation, and we found they released more pollutants than any other steel or iron mill tracked by the EPA across the country. More than half the industrial pollution in Lake County comes from Gary Works, which is owned by U.S. Steel. They declined an interview but responded to our questions by email. The company says the EPA's data includes byproducts legally emitted, and they have systems in place to comply with environmental regulations. In regards to the Industrious Labs report, U.S. Steel says it was, quote, designed to create media attention rather than reach any scientific conclusions.
I love the yellow.
Beryl has lived in Gary for 60 of her 71 years, never fully knowing what she was exposed to.
I didn't think I was living a lifestyle that was polluting my body.
She wasn't. Beryl's doctor said she doesn't have the typical risk factors for her cancer, and she's not alone.
There are many patients that have come from that industrial area that would present with head and neck cancer without risk factors.
Gary has been notoriously known for its pollution for decades.
But
the direct link between air pollution and cancers, Dr. Mihir Biani, also at Rush Medical Center, is getting closer to connecting those dots, and that's new.
Is Beryl Fitzpatrick an example of why your research is so important?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Research he's working on now could force change.
What we are working on currently is again, a direct causal link between air pollution and head and neck cancer.
Is it safe to say the steel plants and mills are making people sick in Gary?
Yes.
Dr. Bayani wants to see emission standards toughened,
so that individuals who are living in these areas, they're exposed to the same clean air that individuals who are living in more affluent areas are.
The types of communities that this industry is impacting are disproportionately people of color and low-income communities.
More than 76% of the people living in Gary are Black, the average income less than $23,000. About a 4-hour drive from Gary, there's a steel plant in Middletown, Ohio. It's getting a major portion of a $500 million federal grant to change the steelmaking process and cut hazardous pollution in that city, which has an average income of $30,000 and it's 73% white. Beryl Fitzpatrick believes more would be done to keep the air clean and her community healthy if Gary's demographics were different.
I am worthy. No matter what you think about my black skin, my dark skin, I'm worthy. I'm worthy for this community to be cleaned up, and I am a person worthy of a good life.
Beryl City and other communities found to be disproportionately impacted by pollution were getting extra help from the federal EPA's Environmental Justice Office. But in April, it was labeled a DEI or diversity program and shut down.
If nothing is done, tell me what happens long term to people living in a community like Gary.
they are going to have higher rates of cancer. They're going to have higher rates of cardiac disease. They're going to have higher rates of lung disease.
It's why the woman who fought for her voice while still battling the disease that nearly took it says she'll do whatever it takes to make a change here. Not just hoping, but believing it can be different for someone else.
As long as I have breath and I can breathe and I have strength to get up, I'm gonna join other people, like-minded people. We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight.
Cleveland Cliffs, who owns 2 of the plants in Northwest Indiana, hasn't returned our messages. U.S. Steel maintains its work is essential to the health of America's economy. But Beryl and others who live here worry about their own health. And right now they're asking lawmakers to step up and join their fight for cleaner air, something we will continue to follow. Reporting in Gary, Indiana, I'm Tara Molina, CBS News Chicago, Investigators.
What an important story.